Hello everyone, this is Ryan, and in this lesson I'll be teaching you about quoting in HTML. So quoting normally is when you quote a person, we put quotation marks around that, or we indent it from the margin. So we'll start with a block level element known as block quote. And then I'm just going to put some sample text in the middle here. Let's say about 50 words of sample text. Just to tidy up the font a little bit, I'm going to add a word wrap feature on. Now we can see it a bit better. Okay, so if we do a live preview on this, you can see what it looks like. It's essentially got a nice big left margin to it. So a normal paragraph would not have such a big left margin. So we could say Joe blogs said. And if we go back to the live preview, see how it indents it from the margin. Okay, then another type of quoting actually is where somebody says something, you normally put double quotes around what they say. So in HTML we cannot use the double quote because the double quote has another meaning. You'll note that in your attributes, for example, we use double quotes. And so therefore we're not allowed to use an actual double quote in our text. So HTML has provided an alternative way of doing that, and that is by using the Q tag. So I'll just pretend that is somebody saying something. And notice that in the actual preview we get the double quotes coming up and the closing double quotes at the end. Okay, so use the Q tag if you want the quotes, use the block quote if you want a nice left margin from the nice big indent. And then just remember that the block quote is also a block element, meaning that it has the full width of the browser and it adds its own margins around it. So just like a heading is a block element and a paragraph is a block element, so is a block quote. But the Q element, however, is an inline element. This is the first example we're doing of an inline element. So an inline element is not the full width of the browser. You can see in this case it's only a partial. And it's also it has to be inside of another parent block element. So you'll see here the block quote tag is our parent tag and the Q is a child of that tag. So that is perfectly legal. However, I wouldn't be allowed to just do the Q tag on its own. It may appear to work, but in reality it needs to be inside of a larger block quote element. So we'll always put it in a paragraph or somewhere else, and then it will be legal. So as we go through the course, we'll introduce new block elements and new inline elements. Don't forget that you can also add some CSS if you want to change the styling of this. Some CSS elements are available. W3 Schools has a very nice reference for CSS. So if we go to the references and we go to CSS reference, we can get a whole lot of stuff here. And one that I want to show you very quickly is margins. So if we go and look for margins, I'll just quickly do a search. The one that I actually want is margin dash left. So this allows you to set the left margin of a particular element. Now block quote, we said, has quite a big left margin. And if you wanted to see what that margin was, the browser has a very nice built-in debug tool which you can access by pressing F12. So if you press F12 in your browser, you get a little breakdown of all the elements on the page, and as I move through the code here, you'll see it highlights the particular elements within the document. So if I click on block quote, it actually has a little diagram for us here giving us the width and the height. So it's got a width of 733 pixels and a height of 72 pixels. But notice that there is also a number that says 40 over here, where it says margin. And as I move my mouse over it, it highlights it in pink. So now we can see the actual margin that's here. So if you would like to give this a much bigger margin, you can. And you do that inside of CSS. So let me quickly link to a CSS file. Should be a style sheet. And then let's just go to quoting.css, which doesn't yet exist, which means I'm going to have to quickly create it. And then I'm just going to say block quote, margin dash left. Remember the current one is 40 pixels, so if I make it 100 pixels, just to exaggerate it, you'll see what it looks like. Okay, refresh. Notice how the margin's increased, and if I go and look at that in the diagram, you can see it's now got a left margin of 100 pixels. And of course you can add other things like change the font or make the text italic. To make the text italic, we use font-style :italic. So if we refresh, see it's all in italic. So font-style you'll find in W3 schools in the CSS reference, specifically under font-style. And here you can see that it can actually set the value to various different values, including italic. And that brings us to the end of working with quotes in HTML.